Tocho sampo pa gyo trashe pa Toche tempe trinle yarngo da Pelge drolor zampe tse parache Palden lamme shabla solvade Omo a guru vajra dara suma timo nisha sane karm Utta varda nyeshre bara varsa manya sarva siddhi hum Om guru vajra dar suma timo nisha sane karm Utta varda nyeshre bara varsa manya sarva siddhi hum Om guru vajra dar suma timo nisha sane karm Utta varda nyeshre badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum. Pakyuke kudan dhagi lo, pakyuke sundan dhagi nga, pakyuke tudan dhagi ten yerme chikto jingi lo. Makyuke kudan dagi lo, makyuke sundan dagi nga, makyuke tudan dagi yi, ten yerme chikto jingi lo. Om Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha Om Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha Om Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha Sangye Chedan Tsoke Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Gi Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupa Resho Sangye Chedan Tsoke Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Gi Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupa Resho Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chonam La Chancho Pardo Dani Kyapsu Chi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonam Gi Drola Pinchira Sangye Drupa Resho. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. I'd like to start today with a very basic concept. But basic concepts doesn't mean they are not important, no? Specifically because they are basic, they are on the basis. That's why they're very important. Because if we do not take good care of them, we cannot build anything on top of it. It's a concept that we have gone through it many times, but I like to start through it this time. It's the fact that we put energy in our life in what we wish, in what we aspire. And what we aspire most of all is to be happy and not to suffer. That's our main wish, that's our main desire. If we look, did any one of us, independently of the culture, independently of the religion, independently of the social status, of the level of education that we have received or not, what each and every one of us desire, deeply and mostly, is to be happy and not to suffer. Which actually is the same aspiration. The wish to be happy and the wish not to suffer, there's two different aspects of the same thing. Okay. So, this is something that is deeply strong into us, and it's not a conceptual wish. It's a non-conceptual, deep desire that moves us to do everything that we do. That's the strength, that's the force that is behind every action that we do. The wish to be happy and the wish not to suffer. This is what is behind everything that we do. And this is something that is like, let's say, this is like what moves everyone, independently of where they live and what they do, all around the world to do it. And this brings us to one very important question, very basic but very important, which is, in the moment that all of us, all around the world, every sentient being, human and non-human, what we wish the most is to be happy. That's the force that drives us to do everything that we do. So then, what is happiness? And it's a very basic question, but it's amazing to see that very often, many of us never do this question truly, sincerely. We all want to be happy, but we never question ourselves, what is happiness? We never question ourselves, what do I need to do to be happy? Because we even don't know very clearly what happiness is. So the first step, which is very important, is to make clear to ourselves what is happiness. And this is a question that I cannot give you the answer. I can give you my answer, but I cannot give you your answer. Each one of us, we need to reach our own understanding of what is happiness. A non-conceptual understanding. Based on that, we will direct where we project our happiness and what we do to be happy and what we do to avoid suffering. But we need to start from a first step, which is, what is happiness? Where do I project my happiness? My own experience is that happiness is an inner state in which we do not wish anything to be different from what it is. It's that moment, that instant. Normally it doesn't last very long, but it's that moment in which we are simply happy, in which we are not reacting over anything. It's a moment in which we are not attacking and we are not defending ourselves from anything and anyone. Is that moment in which we do not wish anything to be different from what it is. In other words, everything is truly fine. Okay? So, when we talk about what's the meaning of happiness, it is most of all, for me personally, this is a personal understanding, but it doesn't need to be the one that you understand. But for me, happiness is this inner state in which, okay, we are satisfied, everything is fine, we are in peace with ourselves and others. Okay. And this inner state, it's something that is much more connected to our satisfaction than connected to pleasure. Very often, we make a confusion in which we think that pleasure is happiness. And we try to induce ourselves to happiness through inducing ourselves to pleasures. But through our own experience, it doesn't last, it doesn't truly work. Momentarily it looks like, but it doesn't truly work. Because happiness is much more connected to satisfaction than to pleasure. Okay. One time, then this brings us to one point which is very important for me, which is what I can call the golden rule. The rule that is the most important of all. It's like the basic, the golden rule. And the golden rule in life is that you do anything you want to do. It doesn't matter what it is. Without being moral, saying you can do this, you cannot do that, this is right, that is wrong. Do anything you like, as long as it works. What does it mean to work? If it truly makes you happy. If it truly takes away your suffering. So it looks like a very permissive rule, that you can do anything. One actually is extremely restrictive. Because when we really go sincerely, what does truly make me more happy? What does truly make me happy? What does truly make me to suffer less? It's not so easy, and there are not so many things in that way. So, it's like one time, one person came to Buddha and asked Buddha, what do you think about the existence of gods? Okay, we need to remember that 2,500 years ago, more or less, Buddha was in India, in a culture that was based on a polytheistic religion, between the Hinduistic religion, and within that religion, there was the concept of many gods. So there was Brahma and Vishnu and Indra and so on. No? So at that time, they came and they asked, Buddha, what do you think about all the gods and so on? And then Buddha simply answered, I am not here to tell if one God exists or don't exist, if many gods exist or don't exist. I'm not here to enter into that. The only thing I can say is independently of the fact if the gods exist or not, your happiness, your suffering depend on yourself and no one else. So all I'm here to do is to share with you what you can do to get more happiness and to suffer less. So basically, we can say that Buddha's teachings are based on this very simple concept. What can we do? What is true suffering? What is true happiness? And what do we need to do to be more happy and to suffer less? That's the basic concept through which it all comes. But again, independently if we are just arriving into touch with Buddhism, or if we are practicing Buddhism for the past 50 years of our lives, the question, what is true happiness? It's a very fundamental question that we need to make to ourselves. And as time will pass, the answer will change. We will think differently. That's common. But the deeper this question, this answer is, the deeper our path goes. Okay? So, there is one concept that it's very much present in Buddhist teachings, that it's actually extremely useful on every aspect of life. It's very useful on mundane things, which can be our job, which can be building a house, which can be making a relationship. It can be in sports, and very, very useful also on the spiritual path. It doesn't matter what it is. The concept in Tibetan is called Shilam Dresum. Shi is the basis, Lam is the path, Drebu is the result. This means that independently of what we do, we must first understand and know which are the resources that we possess, the basis, where we are, who I am, where I am, what I have. Understanding the basis, understanding the resources that I have. Okay, what is the field? Which are the seeds? Do I have water? I need to understand what is the basis of what I have. Okay? Once I understand clearly the basis, once I understand clearly the result, the second step is going to the third point, which is we need to see with these resources what is the objective that I can reach. What can I do with this? What is the goal that I can reach with these resources that I have? So if we make this metaphor, I see which land I have, which seeds I have, how is the weather, do I have water, do I have rain or not? With this, which crop can I take? Which food can I make? What can I do? Okay, which is the result that I can gain from the basis in which I am. Once we put clear the objective, once we have clear the goal, once the result is clear, and remember, the result must always be coherent with the resources, with the basis. It's not going to work that I want to get rice and I only can plant wheat. Okay? We need to have an objective that is coherent with the resources that we have. It's not going to work if I want to plant something, but the field in which I am doesn't have the conditions for that type of seed to grow. It doesn't work if I want to plant something that the field is good, the seeds are good, but the weather is not enough for that. It's too cold or it's too hot or whatever. So I need to really have clearly what are the bases, and with what I have, what can I do? Which is the result that I can reach? Once we have a clear image of the result, then we go to the next step, which is, what is the path? Now I need to prepare the land, then I need to plant the seed, then I need to water, then I need to work hard in order to make the bridge between the basis, the resources, and the result. There's a whole long path to go from one to the other. Okay? It's like I see which is my physical state. I want to win the Olympics. Now I need to train. I want to be a doctor. Can I be a doctor? Yes, I have the capacities to become a doctor. Now I need to study. I want to build a house. Do I have the resources to build a house? Yes, I have the resources to build a house. This is the plan that I want to do. This is the house that I want to build. Now I need to start building it step by step. But what creates frustration in our life very often is when we put to ourselves objectives that are incoherent with the resources that we have. So at some point we feel that, oh, I cannot reach there, and then sometimes even we feel that we are a victim of the world because we cannot have what we want. But simply we placed upon ourselves an objective that is incoherent with our resources. And the other problem that creates unhappiness and is the fact that when we actually place an object that is or not coherent with our resources, and when we place an objective that is coherent with our resources, but we forget that we need to put energy in the path, then we feel frustrated again. Oh, why this is not happening? Why I don't have this? Why I don't have that? Oh, I wish this since such a long time, I have not yet there. I want since so many years to win the Olympics. I have not yet got any medal. Did you train? No. Did you register to go to the Olympics? No. But I want, I'm sorry. Wanting is not enough. So there are these 3 steps that are very important. First, we need to understand our basis, because if we place upon ourselves an objective that is incoherent or disconnected from the basis, then we are never going to be able truly to put effort even on the path. So we must first start. And at some point we will feel like we are the victim of the world because things didn't happen as we expected them to. Okay? It's like, if I put let's make an example of an incoherent objective. Okay? If I put the objective, I want to get pregnant. Now, which is the only possibility for me to get pregnant? I need to die, be reborn as a woman, and then maybe I will get pregnant. There is no other way for that to happen, right? But it doesn't matter. Maybe, if I put myself this objective, I say, how nice it would be and this and that. I can create all ideas about it. And then at a certain point, I feel myself as the victim of the world because I cannot look at that. So many women are getting pregnant. Why I cannot, Because the basis is missing for myself. So what I want to say is that, this is just one stupid example, but we can have many, 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 many other examples. Okay, I want to win the next Olympics on whatever sport for me. It doesn't make any difference. Okay? It's incoherent with the basis. Maybe after 3 Olympics, who knows if I really train well, but not in the next for sure. Because I don't have the basis. My body is not trained enough to do any of this. So, what I want to say is that it's very important for us to have a good basis. And we start to understand the basis by understanding ourselves. Who am I? Where I am? What are the resources that I have? And in the spiritual path, it is very important to understand where we are. Where do I project my happiness? What am I doing? Who am I? Because the danger is that, specifically on the spiritual path, if we do not understand clearly where we are, we can end up creating an idealized idea of what we need to be, disconnected from where we are. And then finally, we just get stuck into this idealized image, and we do not get in touch with reality, and we do not move forward. So there is this first question, which is fundamental, that is, where am I? Where do I project my happiness? What is happiness for me? Which is my own personal state right now? Okay? Because it would say, yes, would it be good to be happy? Would it be wonderful? Yes, to have a lot of wisdom and compassion and to be altruistic and to live with a lot of satisfaction and love for everyone and concentration and peace and so on. Yes, that would be wonderful. But am I there? Not yet. So it's useless to put myself into an idealized image of what I need to be, not connecting to where I am. So first we must have the courage to look at our own eyes and say where I am. And from here, where can I go and how can I move forward? Okay? To understand where we are, who we are, what we want, it's something very important. But it's very important to do it in a non-conceptual way. Which means we observe not what we think is good, what do I really desire. Yeah? So, there are 4 questions that helps us to understand better ourselves in this process. And the 4 questions are, first of all, what is suffering for me? How do I suffer? Is it mainly physical suffering? Is it mainly mental suffering? How do I suffer mostly? This brings us automatically to the second question, which is, why do I suffer? Which is, at this first moment, even a more important question, which is, why do I suffer? And we don't need to look for an answer within our conceptual understanding about things. We don't need to look for logics. Oh, I suffer because of this or that. No. In my daily life, where do I project the causes of my suffering? I suffer because the world is not as it's supposed to be. I suffer because people do not act as they are supposed to act. I suffer because I don't have what I want to have. No? Normally we suffer because of 3 main things in our common way. We suffer because we need to separate ourselves from the objects of attachment. We suffer because we do not gain the objects of desire. And we suffer because we need to enter in contact with the object of aversion. This is normally 3 main things through which we suffer. The next question is, what is happiness? Where do I project my happiness? What do I really want? Bringing us to the next question. Now making it short, but the next question is then, what do I do in my life in order to be happy? And what do I do in order not to suffer? And actually the 4th question is the one that helps us to understand all the 3 before. Because the most easy way to understand where do I project my happiness is, what do I do in life? Because very often we live within contradictions. For example, a very clear example of contradiction that we live in is our laziness. Some weeks ago, I was talking about laziness, and I came into this definition of laziness that for me, it made it much more clear what laziness is. Laziness is the union of a conceptual understanding of the need to do something, united with the lack of deep desire for that. In other words, what is laziness is, it is good to do, it would be good to do, it is right to do, but I don't want. I don't want, that's why I don't do. When we truly, deeply desire for something, we put all the necessary energy to do it and to gain it. So, which is the easiest way to understand where do I project my happiness, where do I project my suffering? By observing our own actions of our daily life. How much I put energy in my meditation? How much I put energy into looking more beautiful? How much I put energy into gaining material things? How much I put energy into trying to change people so they become what I think they should be? How much I put energy into building up the image that other people have of me? How much I put energy into gaining more knowledge? Like this we can go on and on and on. The question is, where do I put my energy? That's where I project my desire, my happiness. That's what I aspire. That's where I project my happiness. Okay, so again, we should not look for an answer in a conceptual level, because there is the danger that we think, oh yes, for me happiness is the inner state of peace and being free from my own defilements and this and that. Wonderful. But then, am I really putting energy in my daily life for that? Is that my priority? If yes, wonderful. This means there is coherence within that. If not, means conceptually I think that happiness is something, but deeply in my daily actions I am projecting it somewhere else. And we are not here to talk about conceptual understandings, to have a training on Buddhist understanding and this and that. That's good, but that's not what we are here for. We are starting today these teachings, which are based, that we are going to see, which are called the 7 points mind training, which is 7 steps to how to train ourselves from a selfish attitude to an altruistic attitude. How to train ourselves to eliminate our own selfishness and our own ignorance. How to train ourselves into love and compassion. This teachings is not about how to develop the understanding of love and compassion and how to understand what is bodhicitta and so on. It's how to develop bodhicitta, not how to understand the theory of bodhicitta. Okay? So, based on that, we need to have a very clear and sincere start in which we look to ourselves and say, okay, this is where I am. From where I am, how can I get there? Where can I go? This is the next step. Okay? So, where do we actually project our own happiness? Normally, we would start by dividing it into 2 groups, 2 possible ways. Or we project our happiness outside, in the external reality, or we project our happiness inside, in our internal reality, in what I am. Okay. Some of us, we try to project our happiness into both. And, okay, up to a certain point, okay, but truly, ultimately, it's just because we do not trust enough one of them, Normally, it's because we see that external reality cannot make us truly happy, but at the same time, we do not really trust only internal happiness. We do not really trust only that. So, we project on both. Okay. Anyhow, let's see first of all where we put our own happiness, what we do. The most common way is that we project our happiness in the external reality. We project our happiness in the people with whom I am, the situation in which I am, how is my body, how is the material conditions that I have, and so on and so on. And we could divide this into 3 types of projection, which is, I am happy if I do not need to separate myself from the objects of attachment, if I can gain the objects of desire, and if I do not enter in contact with the objects of aversion. Okay? These 3 points. I don't want to separate myself from what is an object of attachment. I want to gain the objects of desire. And I don't want to enter in contact with the objects of aversion. I think this is very basic on all of us. Okay? But once we understand if we are projecting our happiness inside or outside, it brings us to a next question, which is, where I am projecting my happiness, does it work or not? Can it really make me happy or not? And here, just to try to help a little bit on that, let's try to see it this way. These 3 points through which we project our happiness: not separating from the object of attachment, gaining the object of desire, and not entering in contact with the object of aversion. Just try to imagine for an instant, would you be happy if you didn't need to separate from the objects of attachment that you have, if you could gain all the objects of desire, and if you never needed to enter in contact with the object of aversion? Normally we would say, yes. And we believe in it, okay? We believe that yes, if I don't need never to separate from the object of attachment, if I can gain every object of desire, and if I never need to enter in contact with the object of aversion, then I will be really happy. But here comes the question, is it possible, first of all? Okay? Is it possible never to be separated from the object of attachment? No, not even one. At some point we die, something happens, it doesn't matter what. At some point we need to separate from the object of attachment. The object changes, we change it, the people change, the situation change. No choice. Is it possible to gain and obtain every object of desire? There is a very simple rule. The more I have, the more I want. The more I want, the less I have. Okay? So the more I have, the more I want. The more I want, the less I have. This is how it works. Because more and less is just a basis of comparison also. So, our experience is that the more we can gain the objects of desire, the more our satisfaction is completely filled up, or the more I gain the object of desire, stronger my desire becomes and I need even more. What is our experience? The more I gain the object of desire, the more I want. And we all know that, okay? That's not rocket science. It's not something like impossible to, it's not deep philosophy. It's very basic understanding. The more I want, the more I have, the more I want. We know that. So it's completely wrong to think that it's possible to gain everything that we want. The only way to gain everything that we want is wanting less. Is being happy with what we have. That's how we can actually fulfill that. Okay? Also because from this we just touch another point, which is it's something simple, but it really makes a difference, okay? We do not suffer because we do not gain the objects of desire. We suffer because we desire what we don't have. Again, we do not suffer because we cannot have what we want. We suffer because we want what we cannot have. Is it clear? Okay, once again, we do not suffer because we cannot have what we want. We suffer because we want what we cannot have. Okay? So, is it possible to gain everything we want? No. Third question. Is it possible to avoid every object of aversion and never enter in contact with objects of aversion? No. And also here, we do not suffer because we encounter objects of aversion. We suffer because we have aversion of what we encounter. Is it clear the difference? Okay? So, again, we do not suffer because we encounter objects of aversion. We suffer because we have aversion of the object that we encounter. Okay? So, again, it's important for us to look, and we make the question to ourselves, like spontaneous question, try to look for a spontaneous answer. If I can have everything that I want, if I don't never need to be separated from the objects of attraction, if I always can get every object of desire, if I never need to enter in contact with that object of aversion, can I be happy? Yes. How can I gain that? Is it possible to gain that? Is it possible to be free, to never need to separate from the objects of attraction, of attachment? No. So we project our happiness in something that is an illusion. That's why it doesn't work. Okay? So what is the only way that we can gain to that? How can I not suffer by separating myself from the objects of attachment? Having no more attachment. Understanding its nature. And while I have it, I enjoy it because it's good. Being aware that it will end because that's its nature. And when it ends, I rejoice that I had it. Instead of suffering because it will end, and then after suffering because I had and I don't have it anymore. Like, I had a very strong feeling of this last month as one of my gurus passed away. The abbot of Tachilumpo Panchen Lobsang Chokyi Gyaltsen Rinpoche, one of my main teachers. He passed away a short time ago. And I had this very strong feeling because all the time I had with him, I really enjoyed it the best way I could. And when he passed away, I deeply rejoiced that I had the opportunity to be with him. So, I believe this is the way that we need to go, which is when we have something that is good, we need to enjoy as much as we can of what we have. And when it finishes, that is its own nature, that's normal, nothing wrong with it. It would be wrong, it would be strange if it would never end. Then there's something wrong with it. But it's normal that things change, that things transform. When they end, we rejoice of something that was good, that we had that opportunity. Okay? Why we suffer when things end? Because we live in this crazy illusion that they should never end, that there is this possibility. We suffer when we get separated from objects of attachment because we live in this crazy illusion that it's possible not to separate ourselves from objects of attachment. How to eliminate the suffering of not gaining the object of desire? Developing satisfaction. And understanding that we will never be able to have everything we want. But we can want less and we can be happy with what is there. Okay. How can I not stop suffering by entering in contact with the objects of aversion? Not by creating a sort of protection, that I protect myself from everything that makes me suffer. So this person I don't like, put him away. I don't want cold, I don't want heat, I don't want this, I don't want that. We try to protect ourselves, put ourselves in a sort of crystal dome. And I protect myself from everything that makes me suffering. But suffering certainly, I see that I am still suffering because I make myself to suffer still, no? And what I do? It's like making a metaphor. Let's say we don't like noises, okay? So we close ourselves from all noises and we want to experience total silence. And we have this illusion that we'll be happy by experiencing total silence. And then we go there and we build this house which is perfectly isolated from any sound that may come from outside. And we make it completely, then we close ourselves in there and suddenly, the first moment, so nice, I finally have silence. Then after some time we start to listen to our heart beating. And to our own breath. And they said there are chambers, there are silence chambers that exist, few of them. And I read an article talking about one of this, that it's so well isolated from any other sound that after some time a person is inside, the person starts listening even to the sound of the blood flowing in the veins. No? And it's very disturbing actually. Normally, people are not able to stay there for long periods. They say like the maximum record is like 40 minutes, no longer than that. So what I want to say, like as a metaphor, we try to stop all sounds from outside, and then finally what happens? We still have sounds. So, like, we try to stop all objects of aversions, but if our aversion is there, we will still find them, and we will still make them, you know. So what's the only way to stop suffering of entering in contact with objects of aversion? Having less and less aversion. Okay. So, there is no way to gain our own state of happiness based on something that cannot sustain. It's something that is an illusion. Because the only thing that truly can make us more happy, the only thing that the more I have, the better I am, is satisfaction, joy, wisdom, love, and so on. All the things around us, the more we have, it won't make us more and more happy, truly speaking. But still we live in this illusion that we think, yes, but yes, it will not make me truly happy, but it will make things better. And then we want something more. And then we want something more. And then we want something more. And then it's endless. I don't know if it's clear. Okay. Well, as we have just seen, there are two ways in which we can project our happiness, which is externally and internally. And the same thing for our suffering. And very often, we do believe in this illusion that we will be happy when this is like this and that is like that, and when I don't get separated from the object of attraction, and when I can get the object of desire, and when when I don't need to enter in contact with the object of aversion. But we know that that's an illusion, right? On top of that, there is another attitude that we can have, that we mostly have, is in our choices, in our actions, where is our priority? The I and the my, or the well-being of all? When we need to make a judgment, when we need to make a choice, what is our reference? The I and the my, or the well-being of all? Normally is the I and the my. Some people say, I am not selfish. For me, my children are more important than myself. Sure, your children, no? Remember, then the my is an extension of the I. Okay? So what happens is that, what is the mechanism that we go through? We enter in contact with any situation, and then we have a sensation, or of pleasure or of suffering. Towards the sensation of pleasure, we have attraction. Towards the sensation of suffering, we develop aversion. From attraction, we gain attachment, insatisfaction. From aversion, we have hatred, anger. Then altogether, we develop also jealousy and envy and fear and so on. Okay? And that's what actually makes us suffer. Because what we have seen quite clearly is that our suffering depends mainly on external conditions or on internal conditions. Internal. We suffer mainly not because how situations are, but because how we relate to them. No? There is even this story of this meditator. It's a true story of a Buddhist master in the 60s in India. Making a long story short, he was put in jail. He was meditating in the forests. And then one day he went a walk to get some firewood, whatever. And then some Indian military from the Indian Secret Service thought he was a spy from Pakistan, and they put him in jail. And they kept him there for 2 years. He didn't speak a word of their language, so they could not really communicate. After 2 years, they said, okay, you can go. He said, no, now I don't go. So they would throw him out of the jail, and then he would run back in. And then he would put him out, and then he would run back in. Why? Because for him it was very clear. He said, no, I am here doing my meditation. When you put me inside this place, I don't know why you put me here, but the fact is that you give me food, and I am in a place protected from cold and rain. And then what do I need more to meditate, So thank you very much. That's the best condition. And my retreat has not yet finished. So finally, he insists so much, they put him in a place where he could go any moment he wanted, but he was still there, and he stayed there for another 2 years. And after that, he went back to the monastery, and when he arrived at the monastery, all the monks were shocked because they thought he had died. Already 4 years before, they made all the pujas for the dead, 49 days, and bardo, and everything, And he had disciples. I don't know if they did a memorial stupa or whatever. The fact is that he arrived there, and people were like if he was back from the dead. But he simply was doing his retreat in better conditions. Okay? What I want to say is that my experience, what I have seen is that when someone is truly satisfied, it doesn't matter if there is enough or there is not enough, it's okay. When someone is very unsatisfied, it doesn't matter if there is enough or not, it's always unsatisfied. When a person is really in balance with himself, even when things go wrong, everything is fine. When we are in unbalance with ourselves, even when everything is fine, things are wrong. So, it's very clear that our happiness and our suffering depends mainly on our inner state, not on our external conditions. And where are the causes of suffering coming from? From satisfaction? When we feel satisfied, do we suffer? No. From gratitude? Have you ever felt suffering while feeling gratitude? No. So where is it actually coming from? From pride, from miserliness, from anger, from fear, from pride, from feeling superior, from arrogance, ultimately from selfishness and from ignorance. And all these feelings, where they come from? From this attachment to the I and the my, of I want to be happy and I don't want to suffer. So it's from this obsession of self-gratification. And here we may ask, but how can that be? Because if on the basis of everything that we do, there is this force that is the wish to be happy and not to suffer. And now you're telling me that the actual main cause of suffering is the obsession with my own happiness. How can I change that? Actually, it's true. And we cannot start from a place in which we are not. But the first thing to understand on that, not the first, but one important thing to understand, is that the way to be happy is to be less selfish, to have more altruism, to have more equanimity, more love, compassion, generosity, humility, wisdom. That's what truly brings happiness. In this life, I met many, many people. The most happy people that I met were the people with more love and more kindness and more humility and more satisfaction, more wisdom. These are the most happy people I have ever met up to now, independently of their external conditions. On the other side, the people that suffer the most, which I have ever met, the more the person is angry, the more the person has attachment and insatisfaction and many projections and arrogance and so on, the more the person is suffering. This is what I have seen in myself and others. So, in order for us to reach this state, to eliminate anger and jealousy and pride and miserliness and so on, where is this all coming from? Selfishness. Have you ever got angry where the I and the my had nothing to do? No. Have you ever felt jealous where the I and the my had nothing to do? No. So where are these defilements coming from? From this obsession with self-gratification. But the only way to eliminate the obsession of self-gratification is understanding that, selfishly speaking, it's better to be altruistic. Because we are selfish, right? I am, at least. There are many different levels of selfishness. The more selfish, the more we are closed in ourselves, the more we suffer. The more we open ourselves to others, the less we suffer, actually. But the only way how we can eliminate our own selfishness and develop a true love towards others is understanding that, selfishly speaking, the best thing to do is to be altruistic. And understanding that this deep, strong wish for happiness, we don't need to take away the wish for happiness. We simply need to open it for others and not keep it only for us. This strong force that is the wish to be happy and the wish not to suffer, we will never need to eliminate it. That's not what it means to eliminate selfishness. It means, instead of keeping it only close towards ourselves, we open it towards others. The same strong urge to be happy and not to suffer. And how can we do that? We can do that through an aspect of our mind, which is the flexibility of the mind. As Geshe Chekawa, the great master which taught the 7 points mind training, he said, the mind is full of defects, but it has a great quality. Whatever you teach, the mind follows. So, this means that every moment we are training ourselves, every moment we are shaping our mind. It's like with the body. If I always sit in a certain position, my body gets used to it. If I sit straight, my body gets used to it. If I eat in a certain way, my body gets used to it. And I get the consequences of everything I do. Similar to that is our mind. The more I think in a way, the easier it becomes to think in that way. So basically, what happens is that we are very, very, very fortunate to have had to be part of a lineage where there are great masters that from generation to generation have passed very valid tools of how to eliminate selfishness and how to develop altruism and wisdom. In other words, very valid methods, a valid training. That's why the teachings are called mind training, Lojong. Lo means mind, Jong means to train. Is to train ourselves in love and wisdom. This is the main training. And we have the fortune that there have been people since the time of Buddha that have actually put these teachings into practice, that have done this training, and that have passed it from generation to generation up to our time. And we have access to this guidance. So these teachings, they arrived to us through what are called the 7 points mind training. How to train ourselves to develop more love and wisdom, to eliminate our own selfishness. There are 7 steps that we need to train ourselves within. Okay? And we will go through these 7 steps in this next 11 days. One by one. And we are very, very fortunate to have them with us. Okay? And these great masters, they have put them into practice and they have shared it with us. And so we can do ourselves also. Remember just that a training can only be done when we really want to train, when we really want the result. So, can I reach the state of altruism, of equanimity, of love and wisdom? Yes, I can. So I want it and I need to put my effort into it. Okay? It's not complicated. The 7-point mind training are not a complicated training. It's very simple. But it's not because it's simple that necessarily it is easy. Okay? But its 7 points are really simple. There is one point which is a bit more difficult, but all the other points are really simple. And because of that, they have been kept secret for a long time. So, we are, as we were saying, we are extremely fortunate to have received this teaching, to have access to this very powerful tool in order to develop love and wisdom. These teachings arrived to us through a text which is called the 7-Point Mind Training, which was written many years ago, many centuries ago, around the 11th century, by one great master called Geshe Chekawa. Geshe Chekawa was a great practitioner in Tibet, with a great knowledge about Buddhism and so on. And one time he came in contact with a text which is called the 8-Verse Mind Training, which starts with Danyi Simchen Tamchela Yishinor Bulela Petunchu Drubasamba Etauto Chebertimbersho. May I cherish each and every sentient being that I ever encounter more than a wish-fulfilling gem. So, as we start with this verse, when he reads this text, he got so touched that he saw within that teachings that could really help him to realize love, compassion, and wisdom. Not to understand, but to realize it, to train himself within it. And so, he left from his place in Kham region, and he went walking to Lhasa. And it took like more than 3 months. But when he arrived in Lhasa to meet Geshe Larin Tampa Sengye Dorje, the great master that wrote these teachings, through with whom he wanted to receive the direct transmission and the teachings about it, on the road, just when he was approaching Lhasa, he met someone which was coming from Lhasa, and he asked him, they start talking, and then they ask, why are you coming, and this and that, and they say, I come to meet this master, and he said, I'm sorry to tell you, but this master have just passed away. So at the time he take the offerings of gold and so on, which he brought to offer, which he had, and he offered to Geshe Larin Tampa, offering into the sky, like throwing in the air, like making an offering, directing it to Geshe Larin Tampa. And anyhow, he goes to Lhasa, and then he goes to look for a disciple of Geshe Larin Tampa that could teach him. And there were 2 great masters at the time, which I have always problem with memory of names, but I think one was Geshe Sharawa, the other was Geshe Potowa. But anyhow, from the 2, one was direct disciple of Geshe Larin Tampa, the other one was disciple, but at the same time disciple of the same master of Geshe Larin Tampa. So he chose to go to this master, which, if I remember correctly, tomorrow I will confirm. His name was Geshe Sharawa. My memory for dates and names is always terrible. Anyhow, he goes to the master, and he goes for teachings with him for 2 years. So he stays there for 2 years, receiving every teaching that he gives. So he left everything he had. He had a lot. He had a life with disciples and a structure and many things. So he left everything he had, and he stayed there for 2 years receiving teachings. And after 2 years, he did not receive one teaching about the subject that he wanted. So one day, his master was making circumambulation around the stupa. He went there. He took out his dagam, which is like his coat somehow. He put on the floor, and he asked the master to sit there. He said, "Oh, great master, would you please accommodate yourself, sit, so I can make you a question?" And he said, "Yes." So he sits. Geshe Chekawa made 3 prostrations to him, and then recited him the 8 verses mind training by Geshe Larin Tampa, and then asked him, "I have come from far to receive these teachings, but in these 2 years that I have been following your teachings, I never heard any reference to these teachings, both in text and in content. Why is that? Is it because these teachings do not exist, or is it because they are not valid?" And then Geshe Sharawa, with great respect, joined his hands and said, "Not only these teachings do exist, and they are extremely valid. The reason why you have not heard any reference to them in all the time you have been here is because those that come to receive teachings from me are too infantile, not mature yet enough to receive such teachings. And that's why you have not heard anything about it. And then he asked, in which way do I need to be mature in order to receive these teachings? And he answered, by having the total determination and strength to put into practice everything that you learn. And he said, I do have that determination. Please give me this teaching. And from that started this master-disciple relationship. And Geshe Chekawa stayed receiving teachings and practicing with Geshe Sharawa for the next 20 years. And after the 20 years, he wrote the 7 Points Mind Training, which is the essence of what he learned in this 20 years with his master. Okay? So he put all of them in the 7 points. And since then, he made these teachings public, which before were kept secret. And for centuries, these teachings were secret. And they were secret because not only they were very simple, but if they were taken only as a conceptual teaching, something just to learn conceptually, then they have no strength, they have no power. Because they are very simple, they are not complicated philosophy, but they are very powerful. So the condition which was requested for centuries was that the one that would receive these teachings would have the full determination to put them into practice. Okay? Geshe Chekawa finally put them public, I believe because otherwise somehow they would be lost in time. And we have the fortune that there were always practitioners following it, and then there were great masters that did special commentaries on it. And then finally we received these teachings to us. I received these teachings through the commentary which was written by Horton Nankapel, which wrote the commentary in accordance to the oral teachings of Lama Tsongkhapa. And I received these teachings directly from my master in Tibet, the abbot of Tashilompo Panchen Lobsang Chokyi Rinpoche. So this is where I received the detailed explanation on these teachings. Then I received many teachings from all the other masters, but that were like the more detailed explanations of this teaching. So we are very fortunate that we have this uninterrupted lineage through which we have contact here. Okay? And I will be reading this text and going through the explanation of the 7 points one by one. We have 11 days to do it. And we will go through it by following this book which I have, which is a commentary on the 7 Points Mind Training, written by Kyabche Trichan Rinpoche. So Trichan Rinpoche wrote a very short, the book has many things inside. One part is this, okay? And then here it has a part in which are very few pages, not so long, in which he gives a commentary, it's actually 11 pages long only, in which Trichan Rinpoche writes a commentary on the 7 Points Mind Training, which is a very short text, but a very powerful one, okay? So we will be going through this text. So tomorrow morning we will start first with the transmission of the text, and then we will go through the explanation of each one of the 7 points one by one in these next days, okay? So today we just did it as an introduction to the importance of mind training. Because if we want to be happy and we want to project our happiness in the right place, we need to train ourselves into it. Because we are conditioned from lives and lives and lives and life to project our happiness in what cannot sustain it. So to change ourselves, it takes effort, it takes time, it takes training, it takes guidance, it takes blessings. And we have all of that. We need to put our effort and we need to follow it. So we'll go through this, starting the 7 points tomorrow. Okay? We'll start with the first point tomorrow. First the transmission, and then we will start with the first point tomorrow. So we conclude here for today and we make the dedications. Chanchu semchu rinpoche ma ke panam ke gyurchi ke pa nyampar me pa yang kongne konto pelwar shon jetsun lame kotse rapten chi namkar tinle cholchur ge pa dang Losan tempe drume sasumgi Drove Munset Autu Negyorchi. Nimo dele tsendele, nime kuyan delekshin. Ninsen takto delekpe, koncho sumke jinge lob, koncho sumke ngodrup tsol, koncho sumke trashishon. At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Omahon Dembala me Sangye Rinpoche, Gyobala me Tamche Rinpoche, Drimbala me Gendurim, Kyamne Kuncho Sumla Chepa Bu.